Hey, this is Pamela Schneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Greg Johnson, our Director of Media Development, you had a nice conversation with Noah Hoffman from C.H. Robinson about some truck rate issues and some truck availability issues. What's going on with that?
We're in a period where a lot of things are coming together all at once, and that's leading to a huge imbalance in supply and demand of trucks capable of carrying perishables. Among the things that are going on are a later season coming out of the Southeast, a big floral push from Mother's Day, and about 90% of US flowers come through Miami. And, just weather issues across the country, general increasing in food service demand, and kind of getting past pandemic buying at retail and more toward traditional buying, which is heavier toward fresh and away from canned and frozen. So all these things are kind of adding up together, and it's leading to truck rates rising. And Noah told me we're pretty much the beginning of the truck rates rising. It should continue to rise throughout the summer. And one of the things he said is generally the Southeast is barometer for what you're going to see basically Memorial Day to Labor Day. And that's going to be higher rates, which means higher retail prices, higher consumer prices. I think we're going to start seeing that across the board with inflation the way it's looking.
Well, and one of the things he said really kind of struck a chord in my mind was about the record anticipated floral holiday for Mother's Day. If you recall last year, some of the bigger holidays were wiped out by the pandemic. One of those was floral for Mother's Day, floral for Easter. Anna Marie and I have talked about this, and floral more than rebounded after those initial steady drops. Some retailers were seeing double-digit and high double digits. We're talking 40% year over year increases in floral, and that's just supermarket floral. If you're not able to visit grandma in person, you can just call up and have flowers delivered, and that was a very popular thing that a lot of people did over the last 12 months, and people have gotten used to having flowers around. I mean, I've gotten used to having them around my house all the time, and the little indulgence there is something that I think a lot of consumers are going to keep. So I anticipate continued steady demand for trucks for floral going forward, especially into the summer. So that was just one little thing where I noticed.
Even after Mother's Day.
Even after Mother's Day. I mean, shoot, you can make your own floral bouquet out of charcuterie and produce if you want to.
I've seen a story about that, but I'm a little skeptical about how that plays out in real life. I think I'll stick with buying my wife and mom flowers occasionally.
Yeah.
That has never not worked out.
Yeah, I mean the floral bouquets, even the stores that I most often frequent, H-E-B and Costco. H-E-B's got the $4 little bouquet there that lasts forever, looks great, and a lot of consumers have gotten into the habit of buying floral, and I don't see that going away.
All right, well, changing subjects, one of our most popular stories this week was an asparagus farmer. It's actually a guy that we've talked to quite a bit and throughout the years at Owyhee Produce. Shay, we hear from him all the time, but his story on asparagus was he had a crop that was ready to go and he didn't have the workers. So what did he do about it? Did he whine?
Yes, actually.
Sure, he did. And then what?
Well, so Shay, I have been watching for years, kind of in the background on LinkedIn. He's a charismatic, dynamic kind of guy, especially on video. I would almost call him like the king of the selfie video in our space. And he has his own TikTok presence and got millions of views previous to this. He actually is starting to do these farming 101 kind of videos talking about how we store onions in these giant things. And he's gotten a lot of following. But so when he had this asparagus crop coming up, and local asparagus, I think that's another thing that really struck a nerve for a lot of people in the produce industry, is that there is so little domestic asparagus. It's such a hard crop to grow and pick and ship and just keep viable, that to
And
see
compete with imports.
right, I mean, to see a domestic crop basically that was going to go to waste because they had requested H2A workers, knowing from a previous experience that they weren't going to be able to get local people to come pick the crop. I mean, it is what it is. This is what's happening in agriculture today, and it's been happening for 15 years, as long as I've been in the produce industry, and I'm sure as long as you've been in the produce industry. Getting local people to pick crops is a challenge. Right?
That's a bigger issue. Not to get too sidetracked, but Wall Street Journal had a big story this week about how the food service industry, as they bounce back into life, they're having trouble getting workers because the people have gotten used to not working, and there is still government money for unemployment, and it's hard for food service to compete with that.
It's hard for an
problem.
An entire system that, if you're going to risk your life in a pandemic, because honestly, people are still getting sick and people are still dying, to make $2 an hour slinging baby backs at Chili's. I mean, it's a pretty hard choice to decide to go back into that. So it's tough. Back to asparagus.
Illustrated very well in Shay's piece.
Yes.
So what it looks like in real life when we have this problem.
So what he did was, they needed 30 to 40 workers. I talked to the company to see what exactly needed to happen to make this harvest happen. And 30 to 40 workers is generally what they get to pick 35-acre plot like this. And one of the things that came up on LinkedIn was, well, why don't you use a mechanical harvester? And I have seen Shay try these. Every single mechanical harvester comments like, it's so weird how you can like spy on people on LinkedIn and see how they comment on videos. Because back in the Cheddar days, when all the videos on LinkedIn were from Cheddar, you could see mechanical harvesters all the time. And he has tried every single one of them that he could get his hands on, and none of that worked. He was prepared to pay $16 an hour for local harvesters or whoever was going to come harvest, knew he wasn't going to get it, couldn't get them here, so he requested H2A workers. The H2A request got crickets chirping, nothing happened, and then they heard back from the government that said, oh, your request is delayed to, a month to 2 months after harvest was going to be over. So, I mean, at this point, we're game over. We're going to disc under the crop. Long story short, he goes on TikTok, gets millions of views saying, I'm not going to be able to pick this. Come to my farm and pick it if you want to. And 6,000 people showed up to pick 35 acres.
It's like Field of Dreams for asparagus.
I mean, the problem is that Field of Dreams is a feel-good movie about saving American baseball history, and this is a tragedy of a broken labor system.
But all that asparagus survived.
Oh, sure, yay! All the asparagus survived. I mean, it's got to be like the most frustrating thing ever to know that guy needed 30 to 40 people for a couple of weeks to make his crop work, and then 6,000 people show up with their buckets for a fun day at the farm. I mean,
right, but they wouldn't do it for $16 an hour.
Right, but you do it for free. I mean, I've picked grapes at a agritourism harvest before. I mean, it's what consumers do. They'll come out and save it from being food waste, but they won't buy it at the store to save a farmer by actually paying him for his crop. It's ridiculous.
Well, if consumer demand was higher, then they could pay workers more and they could charge more. And that's another problem, is that the supply and demand is out of whack. And if the free market's really working, there's no domestic asparagus. And that sucks. I mean, that's not good for the nation in general. I mean, having your own food is a big thing is a big thing for a country's security.
Yeah, it sure is. And it's when we're talking about jobs and we're talking about people having something to do, this is pushing more farms towards automation. This is not a problem that's going to go away.
It's also making a bigger ag bigger. And we have people who identify and complain about big business in all sectors, including agriculture, and big getting bigger and support local. Yeah, that's great in concept, but you actually have to do it in real life. And if you really believe in it, sometimes you have to pay more for local, and sometimes it's at the grocery store, and sometimes it's at a farmer's market, and sometimes you even have to go pick it yourself.
Maybe, I mean, they have you pick farms all over the country, and it is a fun day of agriculture for consumers. And part of Shay's message was, how do we get through to consumers that this is what we need, and this is how we continue to save farms? And it is bringing people to experience this, whether it's experiencing it on TikTok or YouTube or in person. There's nothing like getting out there. I can remember trying to pick strawberries for Cal Giant, and I got rejected by QA. You try to pick strawberries, it's not easy. You gain a greater appreciation for it.
Yes, and there's also a disconnect among consumers about, in the produce industry, you take someone like Shay and you go visit his farm, and now what do you call him? A big farmer, big corporate commercial farming, or is he a small family grower? The reality is he's both. He is an actual farmer, and it is his actual farm, but it is big commercial business, and it works on real commercial scale, and it's not a hobby. It's real life, real business. And so it's kind of both. And so someone who's ignorant about the reality of farming in the fresh produce industry, I mean, it really qualifies both as a family farm and big business. And neither of those things is bad. It's the reality, and it's actually good because it makes it more affordable for consumers.
I mean, yeah, if you want to be able to afford all the ingredients in your salad, it's not going to be, a carefully curated head of lettuce by, Farmer Bob in his overalls and his straw hat every time. It can't be. Support Farmer Bob when he's in season. I always remember Tonya Antle saying something about this when she was with Earthbound Farm. She's like, buy local when it's available and in season, and support your local agriculture, and then move on to some of the larger areas when it's not. But you have to continue eating fruits and vegetables to have a well-balanced diet and lifestyle. So we have to find balance to be able to be sustainable.
Yeah, that's right. And hopefully the pandemic is starting to teach us how maybe we've taken our health for granted, and it needs to be a bigger priority.
Speaking of health and priorities, that kind of segues nicely into another story that did really well for us. And it was Raley's in California converting its first existing store to the, I don't know if it's O-N-E or one, concept. It could be both. And this is something that the company has been doing for a while. It's a little mysterious. What does that mean? So I can remember, I don't know how long ago it was, being in person at Raley's and talking to leadership at Raley's when the company first really brought forward this, we are purpose driven and this is our purpose. And it's led by the Teal family. And their purpose is really pushing healthy foods and healthy lifestyles. And for them, that means some tough business decisions like removing tobacco from stores, removing certain types of ingredients that aren't going to pass muster on clean ingredients lists. So the one concept is something that they plan on converting as many stores as profitable to over the next couple of years. In the produce sphere, that means, I'm reading off of their standards, their fruits and vegetables are sustainably farmed and organically and locally sourced whenever possible. Lucky for Raley's, they happen to be in, the salad bowl of America, basically.
That helps.
It's pretty hard to not be local if you're Raley's for most of the year. So this is a really fascinating concept. We have a couple of photos with the story online, and we will watch as this develops to see this company pushing forward this purpose-driven culture. And it really mirrors who their customers are, and they're taking a stance, and it's fascinating to watch.
So you feel like it'll resonate well with their customer base?
I think the customer base for Raley's is more that direction than a value conscious customer. I mean, sure, everyone likes a good value, but that's not why you go to Raley's. You go to Raley's now is how they're positioning themselves to buy healthy, nourishing food. So
Everyone's got to have their niche.
I mean, they're in Northern California. California is a really competitive place for grocery in this country. And if this is the niche they're going after, obviously they've got enough customers to sustain their business. All right, well, that's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up.